Hey guys, this is ZonalFear bringing you a different kind of video today. Today what I'm going to be showing you is how to install an AMD CPU. What this video will show you is how to install your AMD CPU, and it doesn't matter whether it's one of the new FX processors, one of the A6, A8, A10 series processors, or even an older Phenom or Athlon processor. This video will basically cover it all. So, first of all, what we have here is we have an AM3 socket motherboard, as you can kind of see by that there. This is an M4N68T V2 motherboard, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to install a Phenom processor onto it. So, what we need here is, if you bought your processor in a box, it'll already come with a heatsink fan and also the processor itself. So, first of all, let's show you the processor. Processor will come in a package like this, and there you go, and it will usually come with a sticker here, and if we open it up we can see the processor a little clearer when I'm not sort of sliding it across the table. So let's just grab this, and here we go. This is the processor we'll be installing today. Let's get it a bit into focus. This is an AMD Phenom X6 1090T processor, which we're going to install into that motherboard here. So, if you're, a lot of people always say they're scared of breaking things when they're building their own computer. What I want to show you is how easy it really is to install a CPU. On AMD motherboards, you have a socket for the processor, which is here. This is the processor socket. This is where the processor actually goes. And if you look a little closer, up here towards where it is about towards here, you will see an arrow on the socket itself. This arrow indicates that the processor should be going in this way. Also, to make it easier for you, there is actually an arrow on the CPU as well, which I will show you. So there we go. That's the arrow on the CPU, which will line up with the arrow on the socket there. So first of all, let's put our processor into the socket. When you're handling your processor, always do handle it by the sides, like this. Never ever touch the bottom pins here, as you will damage your CPU. So when you're handling the processor, always by the sides, without contact with any of the golden pins at the bottom. Next, you line it up in your hand with the arrow on the CPU socket. So in this case, we're just going to grab that here, and we are going to line it up like so. So as you can see, it's slid nicely into place there. Now, 99% of the time, the processor will literally just drop in, and that's all you need to do. So if you want to make sure it is definitely in, just give it an ever so slight sort of push, like so. And there you go. That CPU is now installed onto the socket. What you then need to do once you've done this is pull down on the pin which is here and lock the processor into place like so. You've just put in your processor onto your motherboard. One thing to note here, and it's very important, do not use any force when you insert the processor into the socket, because you can damage the processor and it'll be an expensive mistake to make. Use absolutely no force on the socket. If you have to, very lightly touch the processor and it will fall into place itself. Don't ever put any serious force onto the processor, because you risk breaking it. Next, we're going to install our heatsink fan, which for processor in a box, processors from AMD, already come with thermal paste pre-applied onto the bottom of the heatsink fan. If, however, you've bought a sort of OEM only OEM only processor, you may need a little bit of this regular thermal compound, which you should apply very gently to the top of the processor up here. What you'd do is you'd use a pea-size amount on that, and then use a heatsink fan that you're currently using, sort of make it all into place. Some people like to use sort of like a light plastic sandwich bag to sort of apply the CPU thermal paste onto the processor itself, Others like to use a pea-sized amount. It doesn't really matter either way, you know which one you prefer. So we're going to install the AM3 socket heatsink and fan, which is just here. This is what will come with most AMD processors, and including the sort of the FX processors, you know, the higher age FX processors and the old Venom processors. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we get that everything's in the right place, which it is. Okay. The motherboard has these two sort of clips here where the heatsink fan needs to hook onto, one at the bottom and one at the top. The heatsink fan comes with exactly that as well. There you go, that's one that you need, and the other one is here, which has a lever on, which you then push down to lock it into place once you've got it on. So, as this already has thermal paste applied on the bottom, I don't need to worry about that. All you need to do at this point is simply mount it onto the socket, like so, and then the really difficult, awkward part, which is actually hooking it up to the clips on the side of the socket. So once you do that, it's quite difficult to do one-handed. So the first one's in place here at the back. Then you need to get the second one in place, the retention clip these are called, into place as well. So let's just do this one as well. Okay. All the time you're doing this, you'll often find that the one that you originally placed at the back has came off and you need to do it all over again. A tiny bit annoying, but you know, nothing you're going to do about it. So the second clip, which is here, you just need to ever so slightly put a tiny bit of sort of pressure sometimes to actually get it on, you know, get it down far enough to clip up. So just make sure that's right, which it is, and then you press down. There you go. So this one here is also clipped on. After you've clipped on both sides and it sits firmish enough, what you then need to do is use the clamp here to lock it down. So this can be a bit awkward, and sometimes your motherboard may make slightly strange noises while you do that. Don't worry about that. As long as you're not pressing down on the motherboard, you'll be fine. So just grab this, and there we go. That is now clipped into place. The heatsink fan is firmly locked onto the motherboard. Worth mentioning is the fact that these also come with sort of this, which is a CPU fan pin, which needs to go onto the corresponding socket on your motherboard. They'll vary on where they are from motherboard to motherboard, but they should look a little something like this. As you can see there, CPU fan right next to the BIOS battery. So check which way it goes by this bit here. As you can see, it goes like this, and you place in, push down ever so slightly, and there you go. Don't forget to do this bit, otherwise your processor will be running without a fan and it's going to get very hot very quickly. So that is exactly how you install an AMD processor onto an AMD motherboard. It really is as simple as that, and providing you follow the instructions I've given you here, you cannot go wrong. If in doubt, always have a look at what someone else has done, you know, just to make sure. What I might also do in the future is explain all the sort of parts on this motherboard, you know, which you can see here. Maybe go into a bit more detail about it as well. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope it helps some of you to correctly install AMD CPUs without too much trouble. Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, take care.